So Chris, when do you think we're going to be meeting in person next?
It looks like the city is going to lift its ordinance in September, early September. At least that's the current
September
plan.
10th. Okay.
We'll give it another minute or two. We need our authority council, Mr. Siegel, and we're expecting Addison, vice chair, as well. Well, hello, Dan.
Oh,
I sent you my link, so you have my name. You might want to change your name there.
that's very funny.
My apologies.
Wow. You look a lot younger than I do.
But you're a lot smarter than I am, so you want to get credit.
If you believe that one.
Oh, I don't know. All right. Here comes Addison. All right. So let's see.
And Chris, do you see Autumn Graves or Sally Woods? They're both with the school, and I think they
Okay.
were planning on joining.
Yes, Sally is in the attendee area. Lasheen, could you move her over? Thank you.
Yep. Am I moving over Ashley Marshall too?
I don't know if she wants, I think she's probably just observing.
You just observing? Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Just let me know if anyone else pops up over in attendees that you want me to move over.
all right. The other name was Autumn?
Autumn Graves. Yeah.
Autumn.
She's not there right now.
Okay, if
Okay.
we see her, we'll bring her in. Anyway. All right, Mr. Chair, I think we're all assembled.
Okay. I'll call the meeting to order. So is there anyone from the public who would like to make a comment? Hearing none. We'll move on to the minutes and the treasurer's report. So hopefully everybody had a chance to look at the minutes. Did anybody have any?
Chair, I
questions?
move to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. So, Chris, do we have to approve the treasurer's report too, or no?
Yes, if you would accept the treasurer's report.
Are there any questions about the treasurer's report?
I've got a quick question. I think this was on the April Treasury's report as well, Treasurer's report as well. On the line item for expenditures, the contributions, $100,000. What, Chris, could you just kind of explain what falls in that?
Yes, that's an annual contribution that the EDA makes to the city
Okay,
to help fund the Office of Economic Development and in some ways compensate for the services that the city provides the authority. The authority has no staff or, kind of back end support vis-a-vis finance systems, things like that. So it has been, I don't know, 10 years, 12 years or so that the authority makes an annual contribution to the city, and you'll see that hit the budget once a year, and that current level is $100,000.
okay, thanks. I knew we did that, but I just didn't know where it showed up in there. Thanks.
Yeah, that's the spot.
Do I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
I'll move.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. So on the agenda, the next order of business is a revenue refunding bond. So I need to recuse myself at this point. And I guess Addison is going to be taking over.
Yeah, I think so.
Mr. Chairman, could you, just for the record, could you explain, you're doing it for a potential conflict of interest and you want to not participate in the meeting for that purpose?
Yes, that's the recusal. It would be a conflict of interest with my firm and St. Anne's Belfield. So is that enough detail or?
That sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
and I disclosed to Chris earlier today that I'm an alumnus of St. Anne's Belfield, class of 2001. And I give money to the school and have a relationship. And my firm, my partner also is an alumnus of the class of 2001. So we both have kind of ties to St. Anne's, but I want to disclose that to the board in case anyone thinks that I should recuse myself as well. I think that I can be impartial in doing this, but I definitely will be willing to step aside if just one of you thinks that I should.
Mr. I guess, are you vice chair now, right? Or chair? That's definitely not a conflict under the Conflicts Act. So.
Well, we need to, I guess, have Chris introduce what, the bond and what the issue is.
Just before we start out, I did also looked at the Conflict of Interest Act and the personal interest section under that. Like Addison, I'm a graduate of St. Anne's Belfield, and my brother worked there. He's now retired, but I don't have any immediate family that has any financial interest.
Unlike apparently the entire board, they would never have accepted me. So I'm not the conflicts here.
Okay, so looks like Ed is going to drop off. So I'll just briefly introduce this item and then we'll get to some presentation on it. Just as a reminder for the whole board, the city's executive order regarding the emergency remains in effect, which allows us to meet electronically as we are doing right now. Just wanted to make sure everybody was aware there has been some news recently about the governor's statewide executive order that has been repealed, but the city and actually the county also have, they're still in effect. So we are enabled to meet virtually and we'll do that until that order is repealed, which we expect to be likely September at the latest. In any case, the item before you is a refunding issue of a bond that was issued originally through the EDA in 2013 on behalf of St. Anne's Belfield for some improvements that they were wishing to make. They want to seek some better terms and do a refunding on that at this time. There are a number of new board members and we do not do these very often. So I'd like our authority counsel, Dan Siegel, to just briefly kind of overview the typical process. And this is a refunding, so it's not the full typical process that includes a public hearing. It's an abbreviated version of that. But I'd like Dan to kind of overview that process for the group and outline what we're going to do today, which is essentially undertake a resolution to approve this moving forward. So Dan, would you just take a few minutes for the benefit of the board?
Sure.
and
I'll be very
cover that?
quick because I thought you actually did a good job of explaining it. So no, in a normal process, there'd be an application for a bond issue. You'd probably have a public hearing at the EDA level. And there would be a public approval at the city council level. That's all that's required under state and federal law. Because this is a refunding, we aren't required to have the public hearing. We aren't required to have the city council do public approval, because those approvals that were done back in 2013 for this bond issue through the EDA still are effective from that standpoint. So you don't really need to have the way this bond issue is being done any change, although we have the bond counsel for St. Anne's Belfield here. TW will explain more. But normally, like I said, we go through the application, we go through the public hearing process. But this time, all we need is one meeting to approve a resolution that's before you that approves a refunding of up to 13 million of the existing bonds to refund the existing bonds for St. Anne's Belfield. And I think TW can explain it more after that, but otherwise there's a basic set of documents that you receive with the form of bond. The documents at some point will coordinate with the chair or the vice chair to sign those documents. They're at the same time doing a similar refunding through the EDA of Albemarle County. So you may have read about that in the newspaper, that's already happened. Part of that has already happened. So I think this is going to be coordinated, but TW can speak more to that. And I guess also maybe speak a little bit, TW, to the authority fee. I know it may have been paid. I know the application was done, but but otherwise, let me I'll be glad to answer any questions that any EDA members have about the process, and then I'll turn it over to TW and his clients at St. Anne Belfield.
Thanks, Dan. And good afternoon, everyone. As Dan said, we are here for a refunding of the 2013 bond and St. Anne's Belfield, both this bond and the bond that Dan mentioned that's issued through Albemarle were issued to a bank, SunTrust at the time that both of them were issued. Obviously, that's now Truist Bank, and Truist and St. Anne's Belfield have agreed to adjust the interest rate lower for them, and so they're here to affect that through the authority. And so the documents are as between the school and the authority and the bank. The documents are fairly similar with respect to all of the sort of authority items as they were in 2013. The school and the bank have agreed to adjust some of the financial covenants that they're subject to, but consistent with the 2013 bond and what's required under state law. Obviously, the EDA is not obligated to make any payments here. It's really, again, acting as a conduit to facilitate the tax-exempt borrowing for St. Anne's Belfield. And so the resolution authorizes the chairman or maybe the vice chairman, depending upon if the chairman is not comfortable for his conflict issues, to sign all of the relevant documents that are needed in connection with the refunding. And enter into all of the various certificates and all that sort of stuff that we need to close the refunding. And so on the fee, I mean, I think the only thing there, Dan, I guess, is we had just asked, sort of, and just to get confirmation, and it was probably more my ignorance of the policy of the authority, but whatever, whatever fees are in the authority's policies to be paid, and whether that's an annual fee on an ongoing basis or in connection with the refunding, just to, as long as we can get somebody to give us an invoice for it, we can make sure that it gets paid at closing or at the appropriate time. So, and if there's an application fee that we need to submit for the refunding, just let us know and we'll make sure that that gets taken care of. But, we were moving relatively quickly here just because the school wants to try to get this wrapped up at the end of the month because it has some financial benefits for them in the long term. So appreciate the EDA taking this up at the July meeting. But as Dan said, no need to go to City Council for any approval, given the way that this is really just a reduction in the interest rate. The maturity date on the bond stays the same.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak for a second? Mr. Barnhart?
Yes.
I just want to make sure everybody knows that I know we have some new members of the EDA. They've been very careful to have in the documents. TW is doing a good job of putting in the documents the clear statement that the EDA is not responsible for payment of this bond. It is solely the responsibility of St. Anne's Belfield. So the EDA does not guarantee it. The EDA does not speak to the creditworthiness, and the lender has that language clearly set out in both the bond and the bond documents that it's not a liability of the EDA except for any payments that are made by St. Anne's Belfield. And those are really made directly from the school to the bondholder, which in this case will be Truist Bank. There's also good provisions in there that make it clear that the EDA is indemnified as to anything that occurs in the bond financing by the school, and that there's no personal liability whatsoever of any authority members, which is really one of the most important things you should always worry about. There's no personal liability, and that's actually disclaimed and understood in the documents and throughout. So, but I can answer any questions TW could, and you may have questions for Dr. Graves as well, since she's here as head of the school.
So if I may, let me just ask a question, maybe I've seen this from the other side of things as in finance, but what I'd like to know, and maybe it's helpful for Chris or TW, Dan, just to enlighten the new members of the board, is what allows, say, St. Anne's or any other sort of entity to get access to us as a fiscal authority to issue these municipal bonds?
Wow, that's a great question. So the federal law allows for tax exemption for the interest on the bonds. So, if it's a regular loan, say the tax rate the interest rate might be 4%. And because of it being tax exempt to the holder, since they don't have to pay taxes, or in the bank's cases, they have a specific, they may have to, but the advantage, the rate may be a lot lower because it's tax exempt. So it could be 3% or 2.5%. The tax exempt part of it makes it much more advantageous. And in Virginia, the way that a private charitable group such as this can issue bonds is through EDAs. And so by issuing through the EDA, they can get the tax exempt status. Sometimes you may have, I think the University of Virginia has done a number of issues through the Charlottesville EDA. They've also done it through the Albemarle. There's certain advantages to doing it, again, through the EDA. You can have that tax exempt advantage. In counties, sometimes it's an advantage to issue bonds for governmental operations as well through the EDA. With the city, since they aren't limited in the way they can issue tax bonds like counties, which require referendums, they don't necessarily need to go through the EDA. And so the city EDAs are done a little differently than county EDAs. But yes, structure-wise, governments and nonprofits can issue tax exempt bonds through EDAs. They also, you may occasionally have a manufacturer that can take advantage of a small portion that allows for the EDAs to issue tax exempt bonds. And there's some other sort of odd exempt facility examples of bond issues that can be done through the EDA. But the magic is the EDA as the conduit makes it tax exempt. So that's a great question, Mr. Chase.
Dan, I've got a quick question. You're representing the authority in us. You're representing us in this transaction. Is the city law department at all involved in looking over the documents, or are you the lawyer representing our interests?
So Sands Anderson is doing the representation for the EDA. So we're the EDA's counsel, and we go through all the documents to make sure the EDA is protected and has the proper authority and the fees and everything else.
Okay, thanks.
The EDA is just a conduit, and that really the obligation is between St. Anne's Belfield and SunTrust. And if there's a default on that or something, then that's not coming back to the EDA or to the city of Charlottesville.
That's correct. That's a good summary.
I feel like what we were given, all the terms were blank, and there weren't. Maybe I didn't get the right draft of the actual in our packet, but I didn't really see what the exact terms were when I was kind of browsing through. Am I wrong about that, or?
I think there was a version that came out middle of last week, right, TW?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact day, but I'm going to try and see if I can't pull up, and I can let you know what the interest rate is. Although if Autumn or Sally have it memorized, they can beat me to it. But I think it is going to be a percentage of LIBOR, and I just have to figure out what the plus a spread, and I have to figure out what it is for this loan.
But there's basically, it's a good question. It's based on an index. It's still a floating kind of rate. But the index is a pretty complicated formula for the index. But yeah, I think it'll give TW a minute to go through the.
Well, yeah, I just want to make sure that when it's come time to sign, that there's
detail
blanks
right?
are filled in. I'm kind of browsing and seeing a few of them. Yeah, maybe you mentioned this earlier, like closing fee of blank, yeah. I don't know. It's the version I have, I guess, is in the
yeah. And what I can do as well is send you, as we get closer to the closing, and any kind of blanks that aren't filled in, send those to make sure that each of you have a copy. I'll send it to Chris to forward to you, and so you'll see the changes, because there'll be some changes as the bank makes changes prior to closing. So, good question.
Yeah. So. The interest rate, it will be 79% of LIBOR plus 0.95%.
Dan, I've got another question as well. Given that this is a revenue refunding bond that was originally issued in 2013, I'm assuming that the school is coming to us to do this because it can get a better interest rate with a this kind of refinancing than on its original bond. Is that correct?
TW, I'll let
Yes,
you.
yeah, no, that's exactly right, that we're getting a lower interest rate.
Okay.
The maturity date stays the same, but
Right.
interest rates are low. And so the bank, as a good partner to the school, has agreed to reduce the interest rate.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised you haven't seen more of that this year with the interest rates being so low.
Yeah, this is our first one and we have several, pretty much we're all new to the board, but
Right.
I did see when I was reading through the bond documents that this money was going towards the construction of, I think, I don't have it in front of me, but kind of the new stuff, the auditorium at the school and maybe the dining hall. And I've seen these facilities and they are really great. And if this is a way to refinance, it seems like it's a good idea, because maybe Dr. Graves could speak to that, or somebody from staff, just what this money covered. Because I think that was, important to kind of figure out, or for the board to know.
Yes, it did cover, help to support a dining hall renovation, as well as our theater, the Grisham Theater, which is a space that is both used for our program, but also a space where we partner with the UVA Film Festival, and also allow other different organizations in town to barter with us or borrow or rent at a very low cost rate. I shouldn't even say that. They don't even really pay us for it. We just will allow them to use the space a lot of times, just to be a good neighbor and helper out, to have a space of that nature in town with great parking that's free. So that's how a lot of the money was spent for that particular bond issue for the city.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Chris, what do we need to do here in terms of voting on the motion now that we want to, is the motion?
Yeah,
to accept?
just in terms of process, I think our authority council recommends we do a roll call vote. So if you all are comfortable with that, after there's a motion and a second, I'll read the roll call and we'll record everything appropriately.
Okay, and I guess is the motion to accept or to approve the vice chairman to sign the.
I'll state it for you if you'd like, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, if you could, please advise us on that.
So the motion would be to approve the resolution before you for the refunding of the 2013 bond issue for St. Anne's Bellfield. That's enough of a statement. And then the resolution itself gives you the authority to do all those things you were talking about.
Well, I guess I'll make the motion to approve the resolution of the refunding of the 2013 bond issue for St. Anne's Bellfield. Would somebody else like to?
The only thing I'd add to that is TW going to need to edit the document just to say acting chair or vice chair for Addison to sign off on it, as opposed to having our chairman sign off.
That's a good question as well.
I believe it covers that, covers the chair and vice chair to sign.
Chair or vice chair, so we're good.
Okay,
Good
great.
question.
Well, I'll second Addison's motion.
Okay, any discussion on that? If not, I guess we'll have a roll call of the votes.
All right, Mr. Coffin,
Yes.
Mr. Chasen,
Approve.
Mr. Barnhart,
Approved.
and Mr. Guerrero.
Approved.
All right, that's 4-0.
All right. And
Thank you very much. And Mr. Vice Chairman, are you planning any vacations anytime in the next 2 weeks?
no, I'm not. I'll be here.
All right, very good.
And
Who
we'll
will
coordinate
be,
the timing.
probably coordinate with Chris on a package of documents to get signed up in the next week or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we get the final version of that, could Chris, could you send it to the group, to the board? So
Yeah,
if
yeah.
anyone has a question, it can be raised before the signature signing happens.
Right.
Yes. We will make sure that happens.
Right.
And TWI can, we can arrange to get everything signed off and everything. So,
Well, since you have Chris Engel, I was really talking to you under your name.
oh, that's right. Yeah. I've never had that happen, Chris, but I think I like being Chris Engel.
I don't think you'll like it for long.
But yeah, no, Dan, we'll coordinate with you on everything. That works fine. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I guess that brings us on the agenda to informational updates and announcements.
This was the main agenda item. Thank you all for being attentive and in attendance today. As was asked earlier by Chairman Schmitz, we will likely go back to in-person meetings, hopefully in September, pending the city council taking action on removing the executive order, emergency order that is still in place locally. But other than that, stay tuned for August. We may or may not need to meet depending upon other business that arises. And I'll be in touch as soon as we have the final documents for the vice chair to sign, but also the whole board to circulate to the whole board.
Okay,
I think that's it.
any other announcements or do we need to do a motion to adjourn or do we just sign off?
You can do a motion to adjourn. That would be good.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll move. Adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, well, hope to see you guys in person soon.
Likewise.
You
All
want-
right.
All right.
Thank you all.
Take care,
Appreciate it.
everybody.